And Cherae is one of the most brilliant people that you will come to meet. I'm so glad that you were able to bear witness to her. She is the head of marketing at Flybridge, which is a very influential early stage VC firm. But more than that, she is an entrepreneur, she is an investor, she's a community designer and host. She is the founder of Tastemakers Africa. And I've watched that journey in awe over about 15 years as she built this really, really brilliant platform that demystified and encouraged people to travel to Africa, but also using technology. So she changed the way in which we saw the continent, but also how we gather and how we use tech. And today she's really shaping the way that we see AI and digital and what's possible. She also operates in a way that is very unique. She is a tinkerer. She's a scientist, which means she has the ability to go from 0 to 100, to focus on a problem, to see its way through. She's a storyteller. She understands that there's many ways of seeing a problem and finds new inroads to answer them. And I think that whatever stage you're in, if it is someone who's looking to pivot, if someone who's trying to find a chart, a path that is not in existence yet, this is someone you can learn from. So, a little round of applause for Cherae Robinson. So let's do like a little way back time machine. So let's go way back time machine. So when you did not start Tastemakers Africa thinking, I need to build a venture-backed startup, right? So let's take it back to that moment and what it was that you saw and what it was that made you decide, I'm going to build this.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about sort of the journey from the switch from sort of seeing a problem to solving it the way I did, because I think that part was not as obvious. So I am a biologist by degree and spent the first 10 years of my career working in various international organizations, trying to sort of bridge my desire to live a global life and this biology degree that I had once I aborted my idea of becoming a doctor. And many pivots in my life. But one of the things that was happening is I was traveling a lot. I was based in Mexico. I was spending a lot of time all over the African continent, all over South Asia. And in both places, I saw that the experience I was having as a person in my mid to late 20s, which was very fun. Even in India, it was just this place is so cool, and what everyone else thinks is not, and I think I had that experience in Nairobi, I had that experience in Lagos, and Accra, and Johannesburg. I was just the gap between the experience I'm having, which is art forward, community forward, culture forward, food forward, is 100% not the narrative that everyone is talking about. And so at first I would just be sharing photos of myself, usually out with new people I met in this Facebook group that I was in. And people would always say, oh, can I have your WhatsApp so you can tell me where to go? And so I just was this de facto travel guide in this one Facebook group and then in WhatsApp. And that was my life for a few years. It got around that if you want to know what's happening in Africa, you probably need to message this girl Cherae. And so my WhatsApp began to be this hi, I heard about you from so and so, and I have ADHD, so the inbound was way too much. I was I cannot handle this. And so I started to think about what would it look like, to do something. And so I started this Instagram called Tastemakers Africa, and I would post images on it, and I decided to do a trip to Ghana with one of my friends who was a photographer based in South Africa. And so we just put on Facebook, we're taking 12 people to Ghana in December. This is in 2014, so important. And so we started this December in Ghana hashtag, and nobody was doing this. It was not a thing that people were doing in any way that leveraged the idea of brand and story and like very like culture, fashion forward. And so people like booked this trip and we like sold it out in like 2 weeks. And it was like, oh, like people really want to do this. And it was like our friends, but also people that we didn't know at all. And so we did this trip to Ghana, but we didn't use a tour guide or anything. She had like dated this big rapper in Ghana, so we got like his friends to host stuff. So we were in Ghana with rappers and artists and like these people that paid us this money and taking photos. And I made these t-shirts that said, "Travel Africa, skip mediocre." And it was like very like, at the time, like who says that? Like what are you even talking about? But like I thought it was cute. So I like went on custom ink and like printed up the shirts and made everyone go to the beach and like do a little pose, and they went like viral. Like Jadena started following me. I didn't even know this man. And it was, now he's one of my best friends. But like at the time, it was its own revolutionary act, but like I never thought of it this way. I was just doing what I thought was cute and putting it on the internet. And so, you know, that was the business for a while. It was like me personally hosting trips to Africa that I would literally post on Instagram or Facebook, and eventually like build a WordPress site. So funny to be here. I actually took a WordPress sticker because I was like, I started my business on WordPress. And so I built this WordPress site. I remember all the freaking plugins you had to get so people could pay you. It was crazy. But anyway, that was the business for a few years. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to build an app. So whatever little money we would make, I would like find some app developer in Kenya or Nigeria and like pay them to try to like build an app. Because I knew like I can't be hosting people all the time. And so anyway, to make a long story shorter, I tried a few different versions of this app, and I thought it would be like a Yelp. And at the time, there was this thing called Scout Mob where you could get like cool deals at cool restaurants and bars. And so I thought I would build that. And I was like, people could take this trip, but what's cooler if they could just like know what to do themselves. But those businesses operate on like the businesses paying you something. The African businesses were not going to do that. They were like, we're barely making money. We're not paying you for this listing. We don't even know you. And so I was like, that doesn't work. But by then, we had so many people, you know, rappers, artists, chefs, like cool people who were doing these experiences on our trips that I was hosting. I was like, oh, what if the people, like Uber, you're like just getting a ride from like some other dude? Like what if you could like get a tour from just like some other person? And so once I landed there, it was like, this is the business. Like this is actually the business. And then it was like, well, Uber got venture capital funding and Airbnb got venture capital funding for you to like stay in people's house. Like if we want to build this at scale, like I need to raise some serious money. And so that was the unlock. But it took like so many tries before I got there. I had tried to raise money for the app and I had won a bunch of startup competitions, but like it wasn't enough for like venture scale, because they were like, Africa, like what are you talking about? But by the time I had like 3 years in, revenue, a pretty healthy Instagram following when that like mattered and were real people, then it was like, oh, like she's onto something. And Airbnb experiences wasn't even out yet. So it's like very pioneering to say we're gonna get everyday people, not tour guides, to be on the marketplace. If that wasn't a thing that was happening at that time. That was a really long answer. The other ones would be shorter, I promise.
Storyteller, right? I said it. But I also, one of the things I didn't mention was when I said entrepreneur, she pivoted this idea, this ambitious idea, pioneer, and raised over $1 million. Over $2 million, the internet lies, over $2 million. So going from all of these experiences you just shared, and you had your 3-year, what is that pivot? What is that moment when now you're like, okay, I can flip this into like, I can raise my $2 million? Like, what was that pivot? What was that moment?
So, to be honest, I think I never had a moment where I was like, I can, like with confidence. It was like, I need to in order for this to be as big as I want, and so I have to try really hard. But I never really thought I could do it. Like, I was like, Someone had to give me a book to know what venture capital was. I was a biology major who went to an HBCU. I had never heard of venture capital. Like, I didn't know any of this. Someone told me I was building a startup. I didn't know I was building a startup. I just was like, the biggest way to do this is on the internet. And that is a startup. But I didn't even have the language. I think it was really other people. I had been trying to raise money because I knew I didn't have money. And so it's like, somebody's gotta have money. And so I've been, winning these startup competitions. I've been in an accelerator. I think the biggest unlock that said like swing for the fences, I think, I'm never good with that kind of thing. Rafters, fences, I don't know. I think it's a fence. So anyway, the thing that said swing for the fences was I applied to Booking.com, which is literally the biggest travel business in the world. They were doing a startup accelerator in Amsterdam where their headquarters is. And they were like, we're gonna pick 10 companies and you're gonna be in Amsterdam for 6 weeks, learning how to build from the biggest travel business in the world. And at the time, I had raised like $500K, and I was like launching this experiences model. Like, so I had by then knew that the business needed a new model, and I got individual investors and this guy, Charles Hudson, who runs Precursor Ventures out of San Francisco, which was like an individual person who gave me $5K, introduced me to that person who gave me $150K. And then Shane Wister, the chief operating officer, gave me another $200K. So these like individual people that I was meeting, going to things like this, like literally telling anyone who would listen what I was trying to do. And some people believed me, And so I had that money, and so I started building out the marketplace. I hired all these interns. We were running around Africa. It was insane. But applied to the Booking.com accelerator, and I think there were like 1,500 applicants, like 1,500 companies applied, and they chose 10. And we were one of them. And I think that kind of validation really put the battery in my back, like, no, I'm onto something. Because I think at first it was like, Black women building in Africa, like, I thought it was a big deal, but I had been trying to fundraise. So I knew, like, it was gonna be hard because the venture capitalist across from me, like, doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about. And so the validation from Booking, I think I came back to the States on the other side of that, like, nothing can stop me, I'm all the way up. Like, I was just like, they said it was good. And so it just allowed me, and I mean, also practically speaking, they also helped me understand the language about why the business was working that I didn't have. Because I didn't have this background, I'm an MBA from Harvard, but I just inherently understood the mechanics. I was doing growth experiments without the name, but some of them weren't great because I didn't have the structure. And so I think the Booking accelerator helped me like really categorize and build frameworks around things that were intuitive, and then I could really see the scale happening. Because I was kind of like doing good, but not great. And then it was like a wrap after that.
Which actually, okay, so this is something you said to me that like really stuck with me. And like most things you say, is the challenge, you told me that the challenge isn't the environment that we walk into, it's how we interpret it.
Yeah.
So for founders who, like, I'm sure there's a mentality behind this, right?
Yeah.
This is what it is. So I would say, as we like look up to these like incredible faces, is for everybody here that feels in these moments like they don't belong, like how are you able to ensure that you stand in this power and that you don't shrink and that you continue showing up?
Yeah.
I'm like,
I really say some things.
She said something. I would say, yeah, the challenge isn't just the environment you walk into, it's how you interpret it.
Yeah, I think interpretation is the thing we can control. Like, the world is the world. And that's something I think at some point has really sat with me. Like, the world is the world. And there are many different levers we can pull to change the world, but we still have to operate in the one we're in. And so I think early on, I mean, this is 2016, 2017 when I'm first trying to raise money, you know, venture and startups was like super white male, Harvard, Stanford, that's it. Like, that's what it felt like walking into those rooms. And I remember feeling myself shrink every time someone would kind of be talking to me but looking past me for a person that better pattern matched the thing that they were supposed to be finding. And I remember feeling like shit. Like, and then I had a few beers, as one does in these environments. And this venture capitalist, Cherae Robinson, who I love, was like, what do you think about my event? Like, and I was like, I actually hate it here. And super white. And you didn't do anything to make me feel like, and I was like, I don't like it. And I had something to say. And Charlie and I actually have like become really good friends, and he was a big supporter of mine. But I think even like seeing that being myself was gonna yield me more connection than spending so much time with the like, I don't belong. Like, well, I'm here. Somehow I got the invite. You know, somehow I'm here. And so I think it really is like, where is the opportunity in the place we're different, or in the place we don't feel like we have it, or in the place where maybe someone else is like reflecting back that we're not enough. Like, where is the opportunity in being ourselves the superpower? And I think that really is something that no matter what your background or your perspective, like, being yourself is always a superpower. Most especially in rooms that are not like you.
And I think like pattern matching is really a key point. And so like pattern matching is like one, like how you show up and what you look like and what they expect a VC to be, or what they, right? So that is an expectation. But then also your idea. People try and match it with something they already know, right? So it's with like, there's so many instances where it's like, well, I don't get it, therefore maybe I won't invest in it. I don't get it because it's not, you know, it's not a version of a thing I'm familiar with. So given that you were like charting this path before all of these things existed, how do you, like, what is the advice you can give even around that? Like, what is the thinking around, I have a concept, even though it doesn't look like something someone's familiar with. How do you find a way to like either tell the story or, like, again, not change the direction of the company because it doesn't fit within what somebody expects?
I think a lot of it is like, in the same way you want, I think about the word empathy, and a lot of times empathy is associated with like, as like a feminine trait. But like, I don't think empathy is like gendered, and I don't think empathy is only associated with like care. It's also about like a diagnostic understanding of the other. So if you think about empathy in business, it's like, I want people to understand me, but I as an entrepreneur also have to understand them. So pattern matching is the name of the game if you're someone trying to part ways with money. You know, you're trying to like figure out how to quantify this opportunity, and the way they do it is what other opportunities like this has made other people money before. Like, this is whether it's a loan officer or an investor, like this is the playbook. And so as an entrepreneur, you do two things. One, you educate them about the size of your opportunity. And it doesn't matter how different it is from what someone knows. If you do a good enough job using building blocks people can understand, explaining the size of an opportunity, they will understand. And size matters. But I think the other part of that is, it may not look exactly like something else, but it might have the shape of it. And so another one of your jobs is to do the research. So like, I understood the shape of what I was trying to do, was peer-to-peer. This was the language. Peer-to-peer marketplace. Uber is a peer-to-peer marketplace. Airbnb is a peer-to-peer marketplace. So when I started pitching the business, I was like, okay, no, it's not the exact same thing. But this VC is not going to give a shit about the cultural specificity of Lagos, Nigeria. In fact, it's going to scare them away. But what they will understand is like, 63% of people are spending this much money. This many people need to make money. And matching them together makes sense. In the same way that Uber did it. And I went one step further. I got an advisor from Uber who launched African cities. Like I got the CEO of Expedia to invest as an angel investor. So the other thing is like, my job isn't to fight the fact that you're pattern matching. It's to tell the story that matches your patterns and to find people to de-risk me. So like ultimately, when you're doing something different, they're just trying to, pattern matching is about like eliminating risk. So you as the entrepreneur have to get really savvy about how you're eliminating risk.
We're gonna do a quick battery thing too. So I also know we have like a limited time together, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have some questions as well. So I've got a couple more, and then I'm going to do this before so I think maybe from like for everybody here, how do you feel like it's important to build into community? What is the value of building community in society with like some like-minded people? And then also, as a tag on to that, is meeting in person. How does meeting in person compare to meeting online?
Is there a value difference between meeting in person and meeting online? So I think that you get into it.
Community is a word everyone like throws around now, like to the point where like I ain't even you. When people like I even think I'm updating my LinkedIn. Like I was like, I'm not a community builder. Like I'm very like anti-community builder right now. So that's an aside, because I'm just like I'm tired of it. Once the AI companies start hiring head of communities, I don't want to do it anymore. Me who invest in AI companies. So, you can be hypocritical. But I think the thing about community is, to me, community is about getting out of your comfort zone. While the warm and fuzzy is nice, there's some study, and I wish I could quote it better, but like 9 times out of 10, the person that's gonna allow you to take like a huge leap is not someone in your personal circle, unless you're like a wealthy person already. Like unless you've got like the wealthy friends, it's just not gonna be that. So you need to build community and be in community with other people trying to do the thing you're doing or trying to do something next to it, so you can meet the person that's gonna catapult you. You know what I mean? I was going to all these tech events in New York by myself because I knew if I went with my friends, I would chat to my friends instead of chatting to new people. And I'll never forget it. I met this guy, Mike McCumbee, who's also a VC in New York, and he was like, well, what do you need? What's the most important thing you need? And I was like, $10,000 for a developer. And he wired it to me the next day. I don't even know this man. So like being in community, yes, is about, the warm and fuzzy part of it, but it also is just about like expanding your network while being a meaningful contributor to the network. It's not just about what can I get, but it's also what can you give. I often have perspective and things to offer those rooms that like they didn't have. And so I think for me, that's the community part. And the online versus offline, I think it depends on what kind of person you are. Like I'm not really an internet girly, even though I have built so much of my life on the internet. Like I don't even really like looking at other people's Instagram stories. I go on Instagram to post my photo and leave. Like I can't, again, the ADHD, too many inputs, I can't. But I think some people who are maybe more shy or are more reluctant, and we all have like different ways energy works, And so I think for me, I was so happy we could be in person again because I need to like feel the thing and have that like serendipitous spark. Unlikely for me to be in a chat group. Like I don't even like talking to people on dating apps. Like I'm just like, are we meeting tomorrow? Because otherwise I'm not talking to you. Like I don't know you. But everybody's different. Like I think it really is about like where you shine most. I think there are times when digital community is more expansive than what you can find in real life. And I think there are moments like that Facebook travel group was that for me. I was living in Mexico City. I was like the only Black woman for miles. So that Facebook group was like my lifeline to like my folk. And so in that part of my life, digital community was everything. But now I'm in New York, like I'm trying to see the people in person. So I think it's circumstantial and in some ways like individual. That was a non-answer.
It was an answer. So it is 9:30, just a little time check for those of you who have meetings or things you have to go to. I know we said we were gonna wrap at 9:30, but if we can keep going for a little bit longer, that would be beautiful. And I wanna open it up to anyone here who has a question. That's a slow hand raising. Yeah, probably, there it is.
Thanks so much for all the wisdom and experience you're sharing. I'm going to try and get this a really concise question. Sometimes I think like in the world that we're on, in the world, there's a certain way that experience matters. Like maybe people who have like jobs come up the ranks in the regular like private sector, you have 10, 15, 20 years of experience. But sometimes I feel like that experience can be seen as like being stuck in outdated systems. And how do you kind of measure that, like the person has experience versus someone who may be coming in new, they haven't been really indoctrinated too much into like the corporate way of doing things. And I feel like there's pros and cons to both. So I guess the question is like, how do you maximize like wherever you are in that spectrum, how do you maximize, kind of presenting both? And when you're looking at your peers, how are you like the ones who are doing it the best?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that from two perspectives. One as like an entrepreneur, and the other side as like an investor and person like building in venture, seeing entrepreneurs every day. As an entrepreneur, like I didn't have experience in the travel industry. And I remember when I first started out, like a lot of people would be like, oh, like throwing around acronyms that I didn't know. Like, oh, are you like a DNC? And I'd be like, what does that mean? And so like I was like zero experience in like being a person that goes on trips and takes cute pictures is not working in the travel industry, you know what I mean? And so I think as an entrepreneur at that time and for that business, not being in the industry was like very helpful because I was not stuck in the way you do things, and everything about the way I did things was anti the industry. Technically, to be a tour guide, you have to have a license. I didn't know, and then when I knew, I didn't care. Uber didn't care either. You see where that took out. So I think there are times when, I think there are certain businesses where like not knowing is actually the best because you also aren't trying to follow anybody's rules that you don't know. And then when you do know, you're already in your idea and you don't care. And so I think that's one half. I think the other side, I think it's like very relevant to today's world of companies, is there are times when your industry experience gives you a unique or earned secret that no one else has and that they can't easily replicate. And so to your question, how do you tell the story or where do you lean into it? Where your experience has given you an insight that could only be won by that history, that's the way you tell it. I have 15 years and whatever, I don't care. But this 15 years has given me this insight that no one else has. Now I'm like, well, even with, tens of millions of dollars more raised than you, that person's not gonna have that insight. Or that person's not gonna have that data, which is even more important. And so I think that's the way I think about it. The story, and you can also say, like, I've been in this industry for this long, I have this insight, but forever I've been thinking we should do it this way, or forever I've kind of operated as an outsider because I've always brought, and so it really is, again, like the storytelling and how you leverage it. And if you're an outsider,
you know, I'm an outsider, but outside looking in, I see this problem, and I've talked to like XYZ people who are insiders and they agree with me. So it's like the point of entry and the why is like how I would frame that on either side of it.
Hi, good morning. To me, I'm founder and CEO of Verify Consulting. So my question is, what if you're in the idea stage, right? So how would you, let's say, create a deck or investor deck in that idea stage? And also, which events I heard you talk about New York Tech Week? New York Tech Week has so many events, so sometimes I'm like confused. I'm like, I don't know which one would be really important. So which events would you say would be like the best to get most out of the not really experience, but the people?
So on the deck side, I would say there are like a gazillion, like probably like decks to follow online now. Like it's like fairly documented. I would say, you know, a 10-slide deck is all you need. I would say it's less about format and again more about story. Like ultimately, if you're at the idea stage, you're selling the opportunity and what the opportunity is, and you have to be able to quantify it. And so I think the work of a deck when your business is at the idea stage and you don't have any revenue is one, to find some kind of traction. So there has to be a little bit of something that says like, people want this. For me, when I first started Tastemakers, the first thing I did was make a landing page on WordPress with a email submission box, and I just picked the flyest photo that my friend Stephanie had taken, and I put it up, and it was like, travel Africa, skip mediocre, sign up to be the first to know. And that's the only thing it said. But like, people weren't seeing like this art, like that was not how people were talking about travel to Africa in 2014. And so what I had in my deck was month over month email signs. That was my traction. And it was growing, so it was a good story. Now, no one was signing up, and I wouldn't put it in there. But people were signing up, you know, and I had this like, little Instagram that was growing. And so that was my traction before I had revenue. So I think it's like traction, and then how big is this market in real dollar terms? How many people, how much money, how much is it worth, is it growing? So I think like your first deck is idea, but like supporting factors to say like, and this is the thing. And that's the work of your first deck. And team and all that kind of stuff too. But I think the big thing is like, is this a thing and how big of a thing it is like the number one question investors are trying to see. And then on the events, I think, you know, Tech Week is so big now. We didn't even have New York Tech Week when I was like raising money. The truth is, you're gonna go to some events that weren't worth your time. That's just what it is. Like, the events where I met a person weren't necessarily the ones that I like mapped out to. I was just going. If someone told me, I was going. If I liked the name of it, I was going. And I was going all the time. I'm a mom. I have a now 18-year-old. At the time, he was, you know, 8, 9 years old when I was first like going after this business. And I would have him stay with my aunt because I was like ripping around the world. I had a CTO who had a one-bedroom in East Harlem. I would sleep on his futon and then like get up, go to the events, you know, get on the Amtrak, go back to Albany. And sometimes I'd be like, damn, like this was not worth like missing this day with my kid. And then other times I'd be like, holy shit, I got a meeting intro. And so don't overthink it. You know what I mean? Go to the ones that are interesting to you. You know, if you have an idea that you want to raise money, you should start researching venture firms. If venture capital is right, we've been talking a lot about venture capital. It's not the only way to fund your business. It's not always the best way to fund your business. And so that's the other thing. Maybe it's high net worth individuals and you need to be in Martha's Vineyard, like I don't know. But I think that mapping out firms or individuals and seeing where they're gonna be is like, you know, if you're gonna have a strategy. But ultimately I think it's going to what sounds good to you. But not only going to the things that feel comfortable. So like, I didn't only go to the Black Founders events. Like, because I was like, well, they too are trying to figure it out. I need to go where the people who have figured it out are going. And so I think like, it can be easy to be like, I'm gonna go to the women in tech, which is great. Obviously, that's what we're doing here. But I think it behooves you to be in the room. Again, we too should be pattern matching. The pattern is they have the money. So I'm going to their room.
Okay, one last one.
Thank you. Hello, how are you? So I'm going to read mine. I'm going to be very quick. My name is Shanette. I am the founder of the CDMA business model with a 100-year workforce legacy of innovation. My great-grandmother owned an employment agency during the Harlem Renaissance, which is featured at the Stromberg Center of Research in Black Culture, managed under the public library system. As a modern builder who created your own roadmap, trying to determine how to ensure that ecosystems that we're building today aren't just temporary startup trends. The goal is to make sure that it's institutional sustainability, generational building blocks that secure a legacy for another 100 years.
Ooh, that's a big question. How to ensure, like,
Sustainability and legacy. Yeah?
yes.
So, I mean, to be candid, I shut down my company. You know, I raised all this money, it made a lot of money, and then COVID happened. And people couldn't travel. And they couldn't travel for years. And when you take venture capital money, you have to keep growing. And your employees, you know, when you want the best and the brightest, they cost real money. You know, and so you start losing six-figure employees, and if you want to return to your business, you need to be still growing if you want to follow that model. And so, you know, I have struggled with the fact that I did all of this, and now I'm just like head of platform and marketing at a fund. Like, that is not the legacy I was trying to build. The work I did has had a lot of legacy to the people in the communities it served, and it is seen as this big revolutionary thing. But like, by the time I got into the venture capital game, and I was like, you know, then you start believing, like, maybe I can be Mark Zuckerberg. Like, I've now cleared the seed round, and I want to be able to like sit with the president. I want to be able to fund to put in office. You know what I mean? Like, this is the level of wealth that's possible if you go all the way, right? And so I think that answer is, at the same time, something I started in 2014 was a building block for the year return in 2019. And now the thing I set out to do, which is change how the world sees Africa from a travel, culture, and even business perspective, has happened. Like, the thing I set out to do is the thing that has happened. And so my business was a pioneer in it. It opened floodgates. A lot of people have come after that. So like, it's very rare in your life that you do something that you know has like fundamentally changed the world for millions of people. And so from a legacy perspective, that is the legacy. And like, if I write a book about it, or, you know, like, maybe I'll be more cemented. But like, the people who know that this thing was an unlock. At the same time, you know, as I think about businesses now, I think about business fundamentals and risk. Like, I didn't model COVID into my business, like a time when people couldn't travel. But like, thinking about risk to your business and thinking about like alternative motions in advance is definitely something I do now. And even as I think about sustainability, I think about how do I get beyond the surface problem and into problems that are more entrenched. I think that's why enterprise businesses grow faster from a revenue perspective than consumer businesses. Consumer businesses, you get caught in the winds of like change and perspective. Enterprise business, once you're locked into a business systems, harder to dislodge you. I still would only build a consumer business, but you know. So I think I guess the short answer is, it's a great idea, and it sounds good to say, but minding your business and the business of business is the best way to do that. Like, I think the real hard answer is, like, you can desire to do that, but as a business owner, like, being, like, really aggressive about your revenue, being, like, flexible and understanding how to make hard cuts. You know, I should have fired my team as soon as the pandemic happened. That would have sucked to do, but I would have still had $1.5 million in the tank when it was over, and I could have kept going. Those are the hard decisions, you know? And so I think when you're building a business, spend 10% of your time thinking about the big future and 90% of the time executing right now.
Okay, I will end with this. We all know as entrepreneurs that it's not, and certainly within the NYC, that it's not about this one major milestone that you hit. Like, it's these little days of showing up and like going to the thing that doesn't sound good, but like continuously showing up and having little wins and just continuing on your journey. So with that said, I want to do two things. I want, if you could, share like one piece of advice that maybe you wish you had known. And then two, I want you to acknowledge something that you did this week.
Oh, okay. I think the piece of advice I would say is being an entrepreneur is actually a very personal journey. It's a personal growth journey. And I would say minding that and like doing that work is actually the most important work of your business. So if you don't have a coach or a therapist or something like that, like literally get it now. Who you can become as an entrepreneur has a direct corollary to like your own personal growth. And so that's probably the piece of advice that I would have that I didn't give. And then the thing I'm proud of this week. So one of the things I do for my job outside of like being the brand and marketing person for the firm is I run a platform, which basically means all the entrepreneurs we invest in, I help them with their go-to-market, with their business strategy, with their next fundraise. Like, I get in the trenches with them to help them be successful because our check alone isn't going to get them there. And I organize and host this annual Founders Week where we bring the entrepreneurs we've backed to one place and like put them in front of like world-renowned speakers, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I was like, you know, we've been doing this like on our website, like the registration thing, but like we need something more dynamic. We need to connect people. I want them to be able to register in a different way. So I like, you know, put out, you know, some notes to a few companies and got all these like $20,000 quotes to build an application for this. And I was like, absolutely not. And so I went on Claude Code and I built it myself in 2 afternoons. And I'm really, really proud of it. And like every day I look at it, I'm like, boop, did it in 2 afternoons, 20K saved. And I say that because, I mean, the Claude Cowork and Code are really, you know, the thing. And it's like a good application. Like, I love it so much. And so I'm really, really proud of that and encourage you all, if you're not doing things or building things in Cowork and Code, like, don't just ask ChatGPT for your little grocery list. Like, you know, build things. It's a very, I never saw myself as a technical founder, and it was like a little dig I had for a long time. Everybody's a technical founder now. You can do it in Claude Code. At least your first version.
Raise a glass to that, please. This is, yes, she built something. Yeah.
I don't have to do that anymore.
Is that just David?
I do it myself.
You did see that.
I think we should clock in.
I was doing this.
to do it. However you want to do it. Thank you to Cherae. Give it up. One of the greatest things I'd love to see is if you've met someone new, if you've made a friend or a new connection, exchange information, if that feels right to you, or if you just shared a bit of a conversation, it also feels wonderful for me to see, so thank you. As I said, we do this monthly, so be on the lookout if you haven't signed up for the newsletter. That is where you'll get all this information for all of the workshops and all of these in-persons. If there's anything you want to talk to me about, like if it's an event you'd like to see, a speaker you want to hear, if you are a speaker that you want to talk. We also have mentorship programs. If you want to talk about mentorship, I can guide you in that regard. If you haven't checked in, just JML, who's at the front, just make sure you check in before you go. And other than that, have a beautiful day. I couldn't imagine a greater way to start it, so thank you. Sure, you don't think about
I left my uncle with her. I have a